So here's my original painting, and you can see there's some flat areas. And the paint is fairly thin. It looks more like maybe a river, a Hudson River school type painting. So I want to repaint this, do it just a little bit bigger. This is a 16 by 20, and I'm just drawing into the canvas with a 3B pencil. So I'm speeding things up a little bit. Just getting a little slow. So the first thing I do is put in the sky with the palette knife. Now, I have been just painting the skies in, but I tend to get the paint a little too thick when I do that, so I wanted to do the sky and the mountains with the palette knife. Now I can go back in and put some brush strokes into that if I want to, and I will be doing that. But it's a quick way to get the color in and get some nice broken color. So I first state kind of the darker parts of the mountain there, and then just come back in with some neutral color. I got a little bit too high chroma, so I wanted to push it back with a little gray or blue. So I'm trying to put the color down and leave it, let it be broken, and then come in with some brushes if I want to. Here I'm just kind of settling the paint down a little bit and adding some highlights over that. Now in the sky, I basically am just adding some strokes. Put in the background. Now one mistake I did make here was I should have just drawn through the shapes. I'm getting kind of splotchy, and if I would have just drawn some of the background right through the trees, it would have been a little bit more effective. Then I can just paint right over the top. Just like in drawing, sometimes you'll draw through a figure. You can paint through a form as well, and that sometimes just gives you more solid looking shapes and planes. The background plane looks a little broken up and formless. I'm coming in with some thicker paint and loading up my brush with my palette knife in my left hand. Now here again I wanted to just lay in some color really fast. I wanted to lay in some reds underneath the greens to kind of neutralize the color I'm going to paint over the top. So you can see I'm painting in with some beautifully broken greens there. And now I did make it a little too warm. One of the things I liked about the other painting was it did have some nice cools in it, so I want to repeat those. So I'm coming in with some cool greens, blocking in my darks with just some really dark greens and some purples, and putting the highlights. So I'm just kind of picking up color, moving it around from place to place. The foreground I wanted to keep really warm and dark, so I'm just going to dash in some greens really quick. Now the tree in the lower left corner was a little small, and I'll be fixing that. I felt like it was sort of letting the eye go out of the picture plane. I drop in some purples really quick and paint over it with some really thick strokes. Now this tree is important to get because it is the focal point, so I will go back in and sort of start modeling that somewhat. I thought my background was getting a little too heavy, so I kind of put some more of the sky blue and into the trees a little bit. So I did feel like the road was a little flat, and that was one of my original criticisms was my original painting, so I want to make sure that I get a lot of rich color in there. I'm just using some purple. You can see how I put in a stroke and then modify it. Now I'm using a filbert here, a very long filbert, very small. It's the number 2, and it's excellent for adjusting edges and just kind of pushing color around here and there. As you see, I'm bringing some sky or some mountain color into the top of that tree. So it's really good to soften edges. I used basically 3 brushes in this painting. I used a flat, like a number 8, a number 2 filbert, long, and then I did use a flat eventually, and that was just to kind of, I'm checking some values with my value finder. I want to make sure that those greens are fairly accurate on there. And you can see I've gotten my tree way too dark, which is okay. In general, the old painting is cooler and darker, or lighter, and the new painting is warmer and darker. So that gives me some leeway to put in some lights, which I think is fine. I just want to use a palette knife to just block them in really, really quick. You can get a nice, chaotic, organic shape with a palette knife. I went in with a flat. I was using a flat there. Just really quick to soften some edges and mush the color around. I did put in some very high chroma blues in the back side of the tree. That's probably too much, and I'll probably have to modify that. Drop in some branches really quick. They're too symmetrical, so I'll have to come in and I'm getting better with my branches, but my goal is to just put them in and leave them. And I'm still having problems with that, but you can always go back and just modify them quite easily with, I'm thinking I'm going to use a flat here, either that or the filbert. So putting in some more cools on the tops of the hills will be getting a lot of reflected light from the sky, so I want to make sure that that's represented in the painting, kind of flatten some of that background form, breaking up those trunks. I was just kind of obliterating that one. It was just too much. So I was softening the sky a little bit more with, and I was also softening the edge of the mountain where the sky, and I really blocked in that tree big time. I just felt like it was way, way too, um, nondescript. So I've kind of blocked it in, added some modulation there, and I think that holds the eye in a little bit better. That's probably the biggest flaw in the original painting was this lower left-hand corner, which I really think I've resolved quite a bit. So, I restated some branches, kind of just softening the edges here and there. Some of my really thick passages were just a little too thick, so I'm actually pulling off some paint there, and I'm dropping in some lights. Now, that's one of the advantages of working dark is you can drop in those lights, and wow, they look great. You just pop them in there, and they don't look white; they look saturated with color, and it really works well.